You will not believe how much this garden has grown in just under a month. Hi everybody, welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. My name is Sarah, this is my husband Kevin, and hey, we've been working hard in this garden. We've shown you a little bit here and there over the last, three and a half weeks, but we wanted a chance to bring you through kind of row by row and show you how everything is doing. Overall, things are going great. There are some things that aren't going so great. You guys, we want to be honest with you and show you not only our successes, but some of the things that aren't going as well. So we wanted to show you everything. We're so excited.
You know, we did do a video a few weeks ago about how we were battling the squash beetles or the squash bugs, and you know, I would love to say that we found some miracle cure that took care of that problem, but the truth is we just didn't. We did end up using pyrethrin, which is approved for organic gardening, and we used that a couple times. When we found big batches of them, we would spray it right on, and it made a dent in them. It did slow them down, but it definitely did not take care of them altogether. And there are a couple plants that we're going to show you today that just are really struggling and probably not going to make it. But hey, you know, that's part of gardening. Not everything is a success, but as long as you have more successes than failures, then I count the whole thing as a success.
And there's always next year.
Right. And yes, I've already picked out the spot. I'm getting a plow this week that I'm borrowing from someone at church so we can break new ground on our new garden area. So next year we'll be doubling the size of our garden. So we're super excited about that. Let's get going looking row by row.
This row is okra, summer squash, and then more okra. We have tons of okra. Last year we did terrible in the okra department, and so this year we planted quadruple the amount so that we could actually get some, and I think that we are really going to be up to our ears and beyond in okra, but that's okay. We can sell the extras at the farmer's market. But these guys have grown like 3 feet in the last three and a half weeks. The okra at the very end are actually putting on some okra themselves, a couple here and there every day, but not everything yet. So it's going to be pretty awesome when it's the full harvest season. In the middle here we've got some zucchini and one yellow summer squash variety. Overall, these guys have done well. They got hit with the squash bugs and maybe the cucumber beetles a little bit, but they seem to be bouncing back. We've been doing some research on varieties of squash plants and other plants that are resistant to the squash bugs, and what we've learned is that the yellow summer squash are really susceptible to squash bugs, but the regular zucchinis are more resistant, and that's kind of what we've seen. We have one yellow summer squash plant and it's not doing as well as the regular zucchinis. We haven't gotten to the point yet where everybody does, where they're just inundated with zucchini. We're pretty much able to handle the supply that we are getting. We eat a lot of it fresh, like dipped in, ranch dressing or something. And I've been freezing some to put in my chilies and casseroles, freezing some for zucchini bread, and I've also been making zucchini bread for the farmer's market and for home. So right now we're doing okay, but ask me in another month. We might be like totally inundated by then and sick of it. Let's move on to the tomatoes.
All right, so now for the 2 rows of the garden that are really the only 2 rows that matter. And that's our tomatoes. You guys know how much I love tomatoes. So let's start with some of our cherry tomatoes. What I like to do is plant a couple cherry tomatoes at the end of every row. That way when we're out working in the garden, every time I get to the end of a row, I can just stop and eat some tomatoes. Perfect plan. So here we have some chocolate cherry tomatoes, which if you haven't had these, they are so good. Can you believe how tall these are? I don't know what we're gonna do. They're already about 1.5 feet taller than our fence that we have up for them. So we'll have to see how tall they get, but they are doing amazing. They're starting to ripen. We're getting a few here, maybe 1 or 2 every day. But pretty soon there's going to be hundreds of them. On this side we have our black vernissage, which we planted last year as well. They're another dark tomato and they're super sweet. Another good variety from Baker Creek. But now for our regular tomatoes. And I'm talking big tomatoes. Every year we like to plant one row of hybrid tomatoes and one row of heirloom tomatoes. So this year on our hybrid side we're doing Jet Stars, which was our best producer last year, and we're also doing Celebrities, and both of them are doing amazing. I'll show you some examples in a minute. On the heirloom side we're doing San Marzano and Alpulka, which are both a Roma type tomato for canning, and they are also doing, I mean, they're not ripening quite as fast yet, but there are just a ton of tomatoes. When they start to ripen, we're gonna be really busy canning tomatoes. Well, Sarah's gonna be. I help pick, but she does most of the canning. Let's look at some of these and I'll show you some examples of how big these things are getting. Here's some that are starting to ripen, and look just how amazing those tomatoes are. I mean, they're starting to ripen all over. Now we put our tomatoes in the first week of May. And this year when we put them in, they were probably about a foot tall when we put them in. Thanks to the greenhouse, this year we were able to get much better starts than we did the years when we had to start them in the house. So, you know, if you guys are on the fence about buying a greenhouse, I definitely recommend it. So, we'll leave a link to growersolution.com, which is where we bought our greenhouse, so you guys can check out. They have amazing deals on greenhouses that won't break the bank for you. So over here on our canning side, here's some that are starting to ripen a little bit. These are the San Marzanos. And you can see they're starting to really ripen. All in all, it's just shaping up to be an amazing tomato year. So far, I don't think a single cherry tomato has made it in the house though, because they all go in here. So let's go down here. We'll show you my kind of experimental part of the tomato aisle. Now I'm not normally too experimental with tomatoes. I like red tomatoes and I like sweet tomatoes, and that's about it. But this year I'm trying two new ones. One is called Egg Yolk, which is a yellow tomato, which I actually have to say tastes pretty good. And the other one was a free packet that we got from Baker Creek called Green Vernissage, which I'm really on the fence about because, to be honest, I don't know when they're ripe because they stay green. So I've tried a couple and I don't think they were ripe enough yet. So I'll give you guys an update on that later on. Let's move on to the peppers.
Well, the pepper rows are my favorite. Not that I just love to eat peppers all the time, but I like to cook with peppers and create with peppers and make spice blends with peppers. And this year, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a fantastic pepper year. Look at how tall these pepper plants are. These are poblano peppers. I've done one harvest of these guys and they're going straight into the dehydrator. They will become chili powder and taco seasoning. Right next to them, look at how tall these guys are. This is cayenne peppers. I've never in my life had cayenne pepper plants this tall, and these guys are loaded. They're taking their sweet time ripening, but there are peppers just everywhere. Can you see this? They're just loaded. I can't wait for them to get ripe and red. I'll be throwing them into the dehydrator as well to powder, add to spice blends, and use for health reasons. Over here is our only hybrid variety of spicy chili peppers. These are called Minero peppers. They're a long chili pepper. I will let them go red and dry them and add them to my spice blends. Super excited about these guys. These short guys are Tabasco peppers, and they are finally starting to put on some tiny peppers. I've been threatening them along with encouraging them to get going because they're like behind all the other pepper plants. But we will be letting these go red, and then we will be fermenting them and making homemade Tabasco sauce, which Kevin loves. So they're doing well finally, got blossoms all over the place. And then last on this row are the Anaheim peppers, and they're doing really well. I did a video on how to roast these, and I'm going to be doing another video coming up on how to can these, and these are doing really well as well. We'll just use these in our general Mexican dishes as well as in our salsas. And I lied to you, I've got one more plant. This is a pepperoncini plant, which I will be pickling these guys because I love pickled pepperoncinis. We've got one more row of peppers. Let's go head over there now. This row is primarily sweet peppers with the exception of the jalapenos way at the end. But these are all my bell peppers. I'm growing the Emerald Giant from Baker Creek. They are doing so well. I've harvested about 8 of them so far, maybe more because I used them in my salsa. And they were about this big and they're loaded right now. I'm so happy with them. Let me see if I can find you an example of how gorgeous these are. Oh yeah, come here and look at this one. Look at how beautiful that is. Oh, and here's another one too. Last year I grew California Wonders and they did okay, but these guys are going to be my favorite for sure. Next up is a paprika pepper called Alma Paprika. I'm going to be letting these go red as well. They actually start out yellow, which is kind of weird. I will dry them and turn them into paprika powder, using them in my cooking and in my spice blends. And they're all loaded. I've had to like prop some of them up and tie them up because they're just so loaded with peppers. And lastly are my jalapeno peppers, and I use these for tons of things. They are tall as well, and they are just loaded. I've used quite a few of these already to make some salsas. I'm excited to continue using them for various ways, but I'm most excited to let them go red and turn them into, I'm going to smoke some of them, turn them into chipotle peppers and use those in a number of ways. And then I'm going to be fermenting some of these into sriracha sauce, which is one of my favorite pepper sauces. So I'm in love with the peppers. They're doing so well. I'm so thankful that they're doing well. But let's move on to some of our other squashes and the cucumbers.
All right, so here's our 2 rows of cucumbers. This year we're growing Marketmore and Little Tyke cucumbers, and then 1 or 2 plants of an Armenian cucumber. Both of them are doing really well as far as the amount of cucumbers that we're getting off of them. I mean, they're producing more than we can eat, and so we're feeding a lot of them to the pigs at this point. We also have a neighbor who's bringing some down for the pigs on a pretty regular basis. So, but I did want to show you guys kind of a bad thing that happened with the cucumbers. We were out here picking one night and everything looked great, and then we came out the next morning to just look at things again, and all of a sudden there was some type of fungus that started to spread on the cucumber leaves. And I mean, seriously, overnight it had infected probably a 20 or 25 foot section of our cucumber plants. So I quick went in the house and did some research, and the only thing that I could find that was organic and you know, easy to use to try to stop it was neem oil. So I quick mixed up some neem oil that we had and came out here and just doused the cucumber plants in neem oil, and I have to say it hasn't spread at all since that first day, and it was really pretty bad. I thought we were going to lose both of these rows, but it has stopped it in its tracks, and so the plants seem to be recovering just fine. Now let's go down and I'll show you inside the tunnel down here, and we'll see what we have in there. Okay, so just before we get into the tunnel here, we've got 2 things on each side here that are not doing very well. On this side we have some pie pumpkins, and you can see something, I'm pretty sure it was the squash bugs that got these, and you know, they're just not looking very good. They do have some pretty nice pie pumpkins on them, and we're really just hoping at this point that they will stay alive long enough for these to ripen. Some of them are starting to ripen a little bit, so hopefully they'll hang on for a couple more weeks until these ripen. On this side is our butternut squash, and they're also not doing great. but they're not doing horrible either. They're kind of, dying out down toward the ground, but they're still hanging in there up higher. So the squash themselves look good, and they seem to be ripening pretty well also. So let's go inside the tunnel. Okay, so here we are inside the tunnel. It's actually doing pretty good. It actually looks better from the outside than the inside. Again, this is an area that kind of got hit pretty bad with the squash bugs early on. But it seems to be hanging in there. So it's nice and cool in here, that's for sure. In here we're growing the spoon gourds, which you can see one right here. And then just like last year, we're growing loofah gourds in here. If you haven't seen the video we did last year on loofahs and how to actually get the loofah sponge out from the inside, we'll leave a link up here. So that's how this is doing. All in all, pretty good. Let's move on to the kind of disastrous squash.
This area is where we have had the hardest time controlling the squash bugs. And honestly, in some cases, we are losing the war big time. Right here in front of me, these are a pumpkin that have hulless seeds, which is why I chose them. I was really excited to choose them, and you can see there are quite a few of the pumpkins here, and they're starting to ripen, so we're hoping that they can actually stay alive long enough to complete that process, but they are almost a complete loss. Now, I was telling you before that we've been doing research on varieties that are resistant to the squash bugs, and it seems like we've chosen some that are very resistant and some that are not at all. These pumpkins, not resistant at all, but next door to it, the spaghetti squash, that is somewhat resistant to the squash bugs, and this plant is doing really well. Next to it, however, we have another pumpkin squash, or pumpkin, the hulless pumpkin, and next to it are baby blue Hubbards. And I have come to find out that the squash bugs absolutely love the Hubbard variety of squash. I do have some squash on. Again, we're just hoping that they fully ripen before they kill the plants altogether. And then at the very end, we have some golden acorn squash, and they're doing really well too. Well, come to find out, the squash bugs, it's not that they don't like them, but the plants are much more resistant to them sucking on the leaves, and so they don't die as easily. Early on, we had a problem with the squash borers taking these guys out, but I replanted, and it seems like they've come back to life, and hopefully we get a good crop on these, and that the others do as well as they can.
All right, so these two rows right here are beans. This year we're growing one entire row of green beans. They are the Provider variety of green beans. We've picked a lot of them already. I think we've canned, I think Sarah said 22 quarts of green beans already. Our goal is about 50 quarts, so that would be, about 1 quart a week. So we're hoping we'll get there. On this side, we're trying something new this year. We're trying lima beans. I absolutely love lima beans. One of our daughters loved lima beans. Sarah and our other daughter, not so much. But they'll eat them in soups and that type of thing. So I've never grown these before. Right now, they pretty much look like peas. But I'm assuming that, they're going to grow pretty big. These will be something we won't harvest until fall. So they're kind of a slower grower than the green beans. And then down at the far end of this row, we're growing white beans, and those we'll let dry right on the plants, and use those in soups and things over the winter as well. That's it for the beans. Last thing in the garden is our corn.
So lastly in the garden is our corn. We have 6 rows of the Papa's Blue corn. It's a dry corn, not a sweet corn. So it's doing really well. We did put BT on all of the ears, down into the ears through the silk, to control the corn worms that were growing down in there. Inevitably they just grow here. We kind of did that preventatively, although Kevin did see one boring into one of the ears. So we just did that preventatively. We will let these guys dry on the stalks, and then we'll pick them off, let them dry completely and pop them off, turn them into blue corn flour. And don't you think that blue cornbread would be like the most awesome thing in the planet? I can't even wait for that. That's super exciting. I love cornbread. I love to make cornbread. I actually have award-winning cornbread. It'd be even better if I had blue corn. So we're super excited about these guys. 6 rows, hoping that we'll get enough. Maybe for a year, that'd be great. But that's it for what we have growing in the big garden. So we can tell you that we are so happy and so blessed with the progress that this garden has made over the last 3 to 4 weeks. We just could not wait to show you all how everything has been growing. So even though we've been really fighting the bad bugs this year, we've been really encouraged by the amount and the different types of beneficial bugs that we've been seeing in the garden. We've been seeing ladybugs, lacewings, wasps, lots of types of bees, and actually hummingbirds have been helping us out getting rid of some of the bad bugs. So that's been really great.
So you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this garden tour. Hey, if this is your first time on our homestead, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. If you're one of our traditionalists who comes back every day, thank you guys so much. When we say thank you, we really do truly mean it. Hey, if you know someone who would like this video, don't forget to share it on all your social media. Leave your comments below. And until next time, thanks for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.